good critic offers you constructive alternatives unless there is the kind of fatal congenital flaw that makes realizing the potential of the task an impossibility. And in my lexicon, it goes from concept to strategy to tactics to techniques. This matrix that you received, and I think I heard Victor make use of the term, what precinct, and they are. These are equal precincts. We've already talked about extremes and means. What you do within them then takes a clue from the limits, not constriction, not restriction. And to give you an example, a very specific example, if you would both put your elements back into to their precincts and building on the axo to which he pointed. Now, if you would you leave your rotating the other way with the stupid technique of putting a figure between two schnozzes a little while ago. Absolutes, constants, variables. Would you say that you imposed the complexity, either or one or both of them? Did you impose the complexity into this project, or did you derive the complexity from the project as you were given this three-dimensional instrument and the ground rules as established in the program? Was it applied or was it extracted? Agreed?
For me, it was extracted.
I don't think so. I think it was extracted. There's the idiosyncrasy here, and you know the dissimilarities show themselves. That this stuff came roaring out of two very different right grades. But the issue is how you refine within a very correctly limited set of circumstances. If you factor 5, how many variations and permutations are available on it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just keep the numerology. How many different ways are there that those 5 figures can be juxtaposed to one another or sequenced?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
How many do you think? Did you ever run into that in high school?
Sure, I was never very good.
There are 120 variations on a theme.
So it's 5.
I don't know
It's
about
1
that.
times 2 times 3 times 4. It's 5 factorial.
Thank you. You got the nomenclature. Take over.
But he's saying 5.
I'm saying from 5 you can derive 120 variations, and if you kick it up to 6, you have 720 variations on that theme. The theme being the sequencing. So there's already built in to this thing with that going to either 5 or 6. I mean, I'm awed. 120 different ways. You could spend one lifetime on just doing this same building, and you got 120 that will come out when they bury you, and then you get your postmortem in the newspaper. To take it to the tactics, there's supposed to be an interface and interchange. It goes from maximum to minimum, not from something to nothing, in both of them. Come on over to this side so you can look at this thing here. We get the orientation a little bit more vivid. And since chivalry isn't dead, we'll start with yours first. What would you say constitutes the strongest idea as you see the individual sub-assemblies in the matrix?
Individually?
Well, no, just as a composition, what would you consider to be the strongest idea or the most provocative parts of the scheme? Right, agreed. Now why?
Because of the elements in the front here and the way that it moves up and down.
By the way, for 4 bays, the number would be 24.
Okay, it's in here. Now, go from that as a tactic to a technique. No, you just defined a strategy. Now take it to the tactic and the technique.
I'm not sure I understand.
Okay. What,
I didn't see why they're in the front.
nope. Let's see which side it seems to convey. Yeah, this one. Or maybe, I'm not going to touch that. Perhaps take it out again. Now, what do you see as being the dominant element? Come on, you're in the right ballpark. Strategy's right.
I'm thinking these.
I'll suggest to you that it's this guy right here. Because that's flirting with gravity. You have an obverse L or a reoriented L, and the long leg is hanging. So there's a separation. It's not deriving its support from the base plate. And what, these two look about the same? No. Then we have the variation, the thickness of the vertical is equal to the thickness of the horizontal, thickness of the horizontal equal to the vertical. And here we get the same routine or the same device, except now there's an articulation of dissimilarity between what's hanging, let's say the hanger and the hanger, the hanger and the hangee.
Hangee.
Hangee, okay. So in the 3 bays, except when you put these two guys and they reach out and they're contiguous with that defining element within the matrix, they begin to reinforce each other. When you see them free, this is levitation, 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 and that simply becomes an unarticulated chunk. Now, you already have built in variation in height, right? These two are the same. This has a longer leg. This rides higher from. These are in alignment. That's a constant. So this guy doesn't have the dog leg in it. And as such, it's a different language. Not a variation on theme, a very different language. So you would try to capitalize on what you have here. And that would mean that this protuberance, this dependency, which does not have the change in direction or the redirection within it, would be submitted in some way to the same kind of clip out and discard that you have elsewhere. How many different variations are there on that? Your guess is as good as mine. But that you identified that part of the scheme which arrests the eye most readily and then holds it. The orientation becomes a factor when these get too close. Then it's like a magnet. They graft together and reinforce one another. And that then takes this guy and kind of shuts him out. Same language, different bay, and that fellow becomes the orphan or the leper. You get into the same situation here. This is a constant between the two framing elements. This has the point of redirection within it. It takes the eye down here. And now we have a datum, correct? Again, except instead of the dog leg, we have two inserts. Here, there's an illusion or the suggestion or the implication of a resultant volume. This thing picks up, and because, or is a solid, except when we put our eye where I have it, we realize that the plane is whatever the construction material is. This is a different case because it's a container where we have a hole divided into two voids and a solid in between. And we don't know whether there's anything in there. This could be mass from one extremity to the other of the insert. And here this becomes by compositional element a product of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
7 elements. 2, 3. 1, 2, point of redirection. 3, and the window 4, and this is simply 1 and 2. I keep coming back, going through this routine, that you guys, you know, have been in everything from what theology to animal husbandry, and this is the end of your first semester. This is a real load. We're not being goodbye or patting you on the head. This is tough. And you'll be lucky if you ever have a project that is as demanding or as fulfilling as what you have here as it would pertain to your continued education. Most American architects, maybe built into the genes, my observation is not a product of scientific study, have this irresistible compulsion to make everything not complex, but so damn complicated that it cannot be deciphered. And if you allow complexity to grow out of a situation, then you can always trace it back to its roots. It's not willful, it's not arbitrary, it is a product of an investigation that mines or extracts the complexity. And that's why every one of you, this is not pontificating, it's never overlooking the obvious. Jesus, don't ever let anything happen to this project. Because its real benefit will be when you look at it, not just with the folks at Christmas time, but this time next year, or 2 years, or 10 years, or 30 years, down the pipe. Other discrepancies. An extension between the two extremes. Sorry, Marvin, nothing personal, all right? Between the two extremes, right? Okay. That's a different joint than that is, or that is. Between the extremes, the carryover, even with the dog legs, from one bay to another, and then the carryover again. So these are continuous, and at least compositionally or visually contiguous, then the void, and then this poor guy is out there by himself. This is a full, or if you will, what, simply supported beams? No, I've done a word or two. Simply supported beam. This becomes a cantilever. These are contra, or counter cantilevers. These are the, I come back to Marvin's compulsion, and I make fun of him because I love him, and he's a hell of an architect. But this is the kind of stuff where you deal with a theory. No, you deal with a principle. Then comes the theory, then comes your own ground rules, and that's how you make architecture. And your own rules are not arbitrary. If they are, they're not self-sustaining. They cannot sustain. Now, I'm going at it a little different way.
So
No, but you could say, I think more accurately on a school like this, they're horizontal sections.
sections, yeah, they're